You have just stepped into the Midlife Revolution, your space to ignite possibility, redefine purpose, and embrace the power that comes with age. Co-hosted by yours truly, Coach Wayne.
And I'm Coach Stacy M. Lewis, and we're two seasoned coaches focused on the midlife community of color. This isn't just a podcast, it's a movement. In a world that sometimes forgets the power and the wisdom that comes with age, we're here to ignite a revolution and rewrite the narrative of this incredible journey.
So, whether you're navigating career shifts, rediscovering passions, or challenging the status quo, this is your space. So buckle up. Let's dive into the Midlife Revolution. Good morning, friends and well-wishers. Welcome to another episode of Midlife Revolution. And I am Coach Wayne, your VIP coach. I work with men that are mature and seasoned as they are going through the nuances of middle age or midlife, helping them to realize their dreams and their passions so that on the second half, they'll have their greatest experience. And today, my co-host, as usual, is the bright, illustrious, and wonderful Coach Stacy M. Lewis. Hi, Stacy.
Bright, illustrious, and wonderful. Wow, what an introduction was that. Good morning, Wayne, and good morning to our listening and viewing audience. It is always such a joy to be here. I am Coach Stacy M. Lewis. I am a nonprofit executive. Hit a sister up if you're looking for a great organization to support. I am also a midlife women's coach, and I'm also a health educator. And so we're really excited to dive into today's topic, which we are not going to rush through, as we believe there's some nuggets to share with our listening audience that might help us all just move forward with a different level of excitement and understanding of each other and our collective experiences. So Wayne, take it away.
Stacy, I have had several conversations in various groups of brothers over the last several years. In fact, I contributed to a book just recently that a friend of mine published that spoke about the misconceptions of masculinity and how we are redefining masculinity today. And of course, at the stage of my life that I am and my wonderful, lovely wife, Audrey, we have experienced, and she is at this point experiences something that's oftentimes not spoken about publicly, but certainly affects us in this period, and that is menopause. Stacy, I am here to announce that men also have a period of menopause.
Menopause, absolutely. Sometimes they need to pause, but that's a whole nother story. Yes, indeed. Wayne and I are talking today about the hormonal changes in life that impact both men and women. And, we hear about them in different ways, but our hope is that one of the outcomes is a shared understanding of the other's experience and how we can be a little bit more thoughtful, compassionate, understanding, and encouraging to those that might be in a season where hormones might be running amok.
Stacy, why don't we talking about hormones today? And this is going to be a very testy conversation.
But I'm
now, yeah. Since they have been measuring testosterone medically, and by the way, women have testosterone too, along with estrogen, as men have estrogen along with testosterone, we have, typically speaking, normal male development will find that males have more testosterone than estrogen which comes about in our, you know, through the gonads, bigger muscles, more facial and body hair, and actually behaviors as well in terms of aggression, competition, and so forth. And we'll talk about that. But since they've been measuring, Stacy, they have discovered that there is an all-time reduction in testosterone levels in men throughout medical history. This right now, this period is showing that men have the lowest level of testosterones.
Wow. Wow. I mean, wow. This, I can imagine that there's a lot there. And when we think about just the environmental exposures, life's exposures, food exposures, and I know some of this we'll touch on, but thinking about those things that impact, right, the generational levels of hormones, of normal hormones, and how that impacts our day to day and even our longevity, our health. And so there's so much to talk about here. And our hope is to get to it all without being too rushed.
Well, let me talk about food because a lot of times, and even if you're in your physician's office, we talked a lot about self-care and owning your care and asking the right questions because sometimes it just doesn't come up. But it's important that when we educate ourselves as we go through this period of midlife, that we learn about, you know, studies, practices, dogmas, old wives' tale, and all of that, and
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
alternative care, right? Because it's our lives and it impacts the people that we love the most. So here is one of the things that I saw, which was mind boggling. There was a famous study, a frog study,
Okay.
that had frogs, amphibious frogs, you know, the croak ones.
Ribbit, ribbit. Mm-hmm.
They absolutely, they were given a estrogen hormone in the way of, it's called atrazine. Atrazine. And what atrazine did with these frogs over a period of time, it converted these male frogs to female frogs. And so, what am I saying? Are men going to become frogs or females? That is not the conversation. The reason I raise this is because atrazine is used in this country. It's banned in other countries, but it's used predominantly in herbicides that's used to spray the
Mm.
plants, fruits, and fruit trees and plants, like sugarcane, for example, where you get our sugar. It's used in the United States heavily in weed killing and all that. So it leaks also in the water. But what that is showing is that it is actually, and they're seeing some sort of correlation that atrazine may be responsible and other kinds of additives and herbicides in affecting the gonads of our male population.
Mm.
Thus, we're seeing a level of demasculation and feminization traits in our men and boys in this country. What say you, Stacy?
Well, there was a lot there. I mean, the whole reality of the ongoing knowledge that we have in this country about the use of pesticides and things of that nature, that at any given time might have been considered harmless. And we're now learning that they are harmful. And I wish that there was more insight and more awareness just about how pesticides and things of that nature can really just impact many aspects of our lives, right? But I'm a tree hugger and I'm not going to go down the road of anti, pesticides and things of that nature. But what you consume truly is important and really meaningful, right? They say garbage in, garbage out. And when it comes to hormones, there are also some natural phytoestrogens out there, like soybeans that act like estrogen in our bodies. And I think when we know these things, it allows us to make more informed decisions. So you bringing up the frog study, yes, someday my prince will come. Hopefully, he doesn't come in the form of a frog. But when you bring up this frog study, it really just reminds us that what goes into your body is certainly important to pay attention to. Um, as Sister Audrey points out. Thank you so much for joining us today, Audrey. And yes, diet is everything. It is what goes in, is what we then see outwardly.
Absolutely. If I can go down that road a little bit more in terms of for men and for women,
Yeah.
the hormone shift that happens, we are seeing at an earlier stage that men are having the inability to develop muscles the way they used to. They're losing their hair earlier. They're
Mm-hmm.
becoming moody, irritable, losing self confidence, losing self esteem, lowering in their libido because of the lower testosterone levels. And how does that spell in terms of the translation for work? There's another understanding that little boys, as early as their boyhood days, pre adolescent days, when they have an activity and they win, they are celebrated, they have victory. That psychological win creates a rush of testosterone,
Mm,
and it's sort of, because it's a reward for winning as part of our survival, it creates a vicious cycle. So victories bring about higher level of testosterone in men.
mm,
Higher level of testosterone in men makes them, as it were, more victorious in terms of being prone to win more. And that shows up in terms of aggression and their competitive nature. So you can imagine that men at work who are the hyper masculine fellas are the ones who are the dominant males in the
mm.
in the pecking order, if that makes sense, Stacy.
It does make sense. There again, there's so much there to digest. It certainly makes sense that uh burst of or that hormonal release takes place, right, in victory. It talks to the realities of the ups and downs of life and how hormones can um present themselves, right? What I find interesting, you referred to, when men are boys, is that women are dealing with hormones and the fluctuation of hormones their entire life. It starts, when we're 11, 12, 13, 14, when we get our first period. And then it's just like hormonal takeover. And so this really starting to understand the nuances and the differences about how hormones present in the sexes and how they manifest or evolve over time. I think is fascinating. And so this idea of really the uh, the testosterone and how it boosts up, right, in those moments of celebration. And it sounds like it can be a little cyclical, right? Because as you get that testosterone boost, it then causes you to feel even more masculine, dare I say, or dare I try to say.
Yes. And so the reverse is true. Men who consider themselves or are bought or have bought into the narrative of not being worthy or good enough also show a decline in their testosterone. And there are different types of testosterone. What we're
Mm.
measuring here is what we call free testosterone. That's which
Hmm.
not binded. So it's available, so to speak. And there is a mind, I guess, at the end of it, if nothing else, what we need to recognize is that what we men and women go through in terms of this period of menopause or menopause is a mind body balance. It's things are happening to the body in terms of our hormones and the chemical reactions in our body, but the way we create our thinking can impact that as well in a negative or positive light.
This is so good because I stand corrected by Sister Audrey, and just thinking about you talked about little boys and how that evolves. And as I think about, when I was 8 years old, and even as my nieces were 8 years old, the you could see the impact of the hormones. We tend to brush things off, which I think is one of our strategies for folks not to do, right? Even in this midlife stage, stop brushing things off like, oh, I'm just going through menopause, or oh, I'm just feeling depressed. Oh, it's no big deal. Like, these are the things that happen in life. Let's pay attention, because when a child is 8, 10 years old, we tend to downplay or dismiss even some of those emotional outbursts. As you were saying with the boys, it might be that, like, victorious, I'm a conqueror, I'm strong, I'm powerful. For in girls, it is often that feeling of a lack of control, right? And what we see often is an emotional response. And we tend to, what are you crying about? Or stop acting so whiny. And I get the normal, or the natural rather, reaction. But I think that this is really an opportunity for us to be more attentive, not only to the children in our lives, right? Even the young adults in our lives, but really to ourselves and to others in this season of life, right? In this second half, in this third quarter, where, there's still this hormonal shift happening, and it's happening in both genders.
Yes.
And let's pay attention to that. And certainly just thinking about those that may not identify as male or female, there's still that hormonal impact that we're all dealing with. And let's respect and be a little bit more kind to each other. Sorry, I went off on a tangent
No,
there, Wayne.
no. In some cases, men get treated or want to be treated with hormone therapy. And there's a great, alas, aware, beware for that,
Mm,
because it can have a lot of negative effects. And unless you have been tested and you're absolutely sure that the level of testosterone or DHEA, which is another very powerful hormone, a growth hormone actually, unless you know that and the way that works, typically speaking, what's happening for the male is that as we get older, as we get older, our elasticity in our strength in so many ways, and our vessels and our body
Mm-hmm.
starts failing us if we don't take care of it. And so even with our manhood, the blood flow and nerve system, if it's not use it you lose it kind of thing, and if you're not, yeah, so what happens is for men, oftentimes when there is a lessened amount of testosterone and DHEA, just like going to the gym and using growth hormones to help you push
Mm.
through, men can help themselves by changing the mindset and not seeing themselves as failing, but actually start. And here is one that is very controversial, but we have a divine feminine nature as well as a divine masculine nature.
Mm.
And the divine feminine nature is self care, nurturing ourselves, and so forth. So when men are going through this, it is the apt time to start practicing your divine feminine nature. That's not to say become effeminate, but to start paying attention to your body and doing the things that you may need to do to encourage continuous development and functionality of your potency, so to speak.
Yeah.
And this is true in terms of diet and exercise, sleep, and mindset.
Okay. So which do we want to tackle first? Diet, exercise, sleep, or mindset? Because in the hormonal experience, that's what we'll call it, right? Because from what I'm hearing from you and from what I know, it is an experience that we're both going through as genders. Um, and as we pay attention to that hormonal experience, asking ourselves the important questions: how am I feeling? How is this impacting my sleep? Or asking yourself, really, why am I not sleeping? Why am I only getting 4 hours when I'm used to getting 8? What else is going on in my life, right? What are the external impactors that are happening, and what's happening internally? How old am I? It's funny. One of my girlfriends, every year I talk to her. We're like 5 days apart. Every year I talk to her, and she calls me. She says, "Happy birthday," and she says, "How old are we?" I really don't remember. Trust and believe. There are many, many days I remember, whether it's my knees telling me, whether it's, the fact that I'm not running as fast or as far as I used to. Um, but it is important for me to recognize, like, okay, why am I not sleeping? Does this have anything to do, recognizing my age? What are some of the hormonal things that might be happening inside that I need to maybe talk to my doctor about or begin to address? I mean, you talked about 4 heavy hitters, and sleep is just one of them, but sleep is so critical. And I imagine that if we did some research, we know that at least here in the US, folks are working more than in many other countries, right? Our work days are longer, our work weeks are longer. And how is that external stress impacting us? But what is that doing to our sleep, and how we're then managing all of this, the sleep, the hormones, the whole thing, Wayne, the whole thing.
Yeah, yeah. There are also studies that show that there is not a causation for ED in men and testosterone levels for the most part. And usually the treatment with hormones for men, usually less than 30% is less than 30% effective, ranging from 2 to 30%. Because what they're realizing and have realized is that testosterone as affects the level of it affects your perceptibility, your sense of wellness. It's really more psychological in terms of where it relates to your sexuality, right? Than functionality. It's not that it's going to stop you and give the cursed I word impotence. It's really some of the other things that's happening to you that's bringing that about as you age. But testosterone, what it does, it allows, like we said, it allows you to boost self-confidence and some of the he-man behaviors that would typically occur. Here's a funny thing, and it's ironic. Men typically start seeing this drop. And of course, like I said, across the board is lower in the United States for all groups of men. But typically men start seeing the lowering of their testosterone and, start having the hair loss and the muscle loss of energy and all of that stuff at an earlier stage. But the average guy is going through this at, say, 40. Typically, his wife is 3 or a couple of years younger. So while he's going through this in the house, right, if they're together, she is finding her way because she has raised kids. They're getting older. They're getting ready now. So you can see what's happening already in terms of relationships. So there has to be that conversation, that dialogue, right, where the man needs to say, I am not feeling myself. And women typically will save face for their guys by not bringing it up. They're not going to say, hey, what's going on, and make them feel badly. So it's one of those elephants in the room. And here is what the lesson is. Communication, open, honest communication is key for both parties. Audrey is going through menopause. I don't understand half of it. So throughout the night, sometimes she takes the cover off and I'm like, what's going on? She doesn't really suffer from hot flashes per se, but there are times when definitely she's much warmer than I am and I'm in the blankets and she's taking it. So to understand, I got to ask.
I think that is so profound. We certainly want to acknowledge Sister Judy for joining us and really well summarizing those 4 heavy hitters that you shared. When you talked about, when in a kind of standard, we'll say, relationship, which none of us are really saying we're all standard, that the men might be 40, mid 40s, and the women might be a little younger. I think this idea of communication is so critical because it is not that she's not also going through hormonal things. When you look at that shift in libido, that happens often to women in their later 30s into their 40s. For some, the shift is an amp up. Power to the sisters, where the shift is the amp up. And for some, the shift is the amp down. And so, it is the beauty of that communication that really talks about this is what's happening with me. Has nothing to do with you, right? It is not you making me feel this way. This is what's happening with me. And for the response to be like, I hear what's happening with you. I don't know what to do about it, but this is what's happening with me. And so that dialogue, and I think this really goes beyond the bedroom or the marital relationship. As we work together, as people are colleagues, right? Not that we want to disclose our business. I'm having hot flashes at night, but maybe you do, because there is an understanding that can happen there. So important.
Stacy, we definitely are going to have to pick up because we are 1 minute away from the bottom of the hour. And when we talk next time, we let's talk about the differences in terms of the divine masculine and feminine energy. We are seeing that it's so funny during menopause, women, after it's through the post-menopause, are free in so many ways. And the conscious thinking male also can become free and more expressive at work and at play. So Let us continue, Coach Stacy, next week, Tuesday,
Part
same time,
two.
same place.
Thank you all for joining us. See you next week.
So,
Part
Stacy,
two.
we'll talk next week. Have a wonderful weekend. And there you have it, folks. This week's episode of the Midlife Revolution. Hey, we truly appreciate you spending this time in this space with us. Join us next week at the same time as we dive into relevant topics and present solutions to spark new thinking and empower your midlife journey.
Don't forget, if today's episode resonated with you, share your thoughts and suggest topics in the comments. And of course, remember to subscribe, share, like, and hit that notification bell. You are the Midlife Revolution. I'm Coach Stacy, and I'm cheering you on.
And I'm Coach Wayne, and I'll see you at the top.